Welcome to the 14th episode of Anycast. This is my podcast where I talk about anything that's going on, mainly sports. And again, there was a lot of that going on this weekend. Let's start with the U.S. Open. I want to start on that because if you didn't get to watch any of the women's tennis matches, you missed out. This was a heck of a tournament. And I give the U.S. Open a ton of credit, and everybody in New York, major props to get this to run because we were able to get a really quality performance in the finals. We had Victoria Azarenka, who again was having an unbelievable run. She won the prior tournament leading up to the U.S. Open, and she took out Serena Williams to get to the finals against Naomi Osaka, who, if you haven't seen her, for every match she played, she wore a mask, which, by the way, props to her for doing, because, again, we want to continue to do that in the midst of the pandemic. But it carried different individuals' names, and I thought that's really cool because she paid homage to all those that unfortunately lost their lives because of what has unfolded. For instance, she had Breonna Taylor as one. And so she had all these other names on there. And I thought that was really cool that she was able to do that and use her platform to her advantage to send a message that we need to have change. We need to have unity. And so that was awesome for her to do that. And the match itself, she was absolutely incredible. She became the first tennis player in 25 years to win the U.S. Open after losing the first set. And it was a hard fought battle. Victoria blasted her in the first set 6-1. Osaka came back and won the last two sets each by a 6-3 count. But those two sets, the last two sets that Osaka won, they were hard fought. Victoria Azarenka played magnificently, about as well as you could without winning the title. And so what we got was an excellent back and forth seesaw battle between two proud champions that really, in my opinion, either one of them deserved to win in my book. And so I would have been happy with either or, but I'm definitely happy for Osaka. I also love that she paid tribute to Kobe Bryant. For those who don't remember or may have forgotten, Kobe lost his life tragically along with his daughter and 7 others in that helicopter crash in late January. And Osaka really liked Kobe Bryant and grew up watching him play, and so Kobe was a mentor to her. And so she paid tribute with the Kobe Bryant jersey, and I thought that was a touching tribute there. So all in all, I think that was really good. Now, on the men's side, you would have thought that at this point, because the men's final is today, that Djokovic would be a cakewalk with no Roger Federer, no Rafael Nadal. He's going to walk through today, and he's going to cruise to another title, inching closer to Nadal and Federer. Well, for those who didn't watch last weekend, let's put it this way. He got frustrated, and I know that it can be frustrating, especially when you've been dominating to this point and you've been struggling against a worthy opponent. And what he did was he hit the tennis ball. He didn't mean to do it to hit the lineswoman because it wound up pinning her neck. Thankfully, she's okay from what I heard, and she's going to be all right. But that resulted in Novak Djokovic getting an automatic default, which means in other words, he's disqualified from the tournament. And there was a lot of people that were upset about that because it's like, oh, great, you've taken out the superstar. And quite frankly, it would have been a no-win situation in that retrospect, but I think they still made the right decision. It's tough to take out your number one superstar, but you have to set a standard. The rules are the rules. Even if it's not intentional, if you hit someone with a tennis ball, you're out. And so I applaud the U.S. Open for what they did there because that would have been a tough situation had you kept him in there because then people are going to complain, oh, he's getting away with that because he gets the special treatment. But I'm glad that they did what they did. It sucks because you don't get to see the best player perform. And so, yeah, but the rules are the rules. And so hopefully that's a lesson that Novak Djokovic will learn. I don't think he's winning the French Open, though, because if Rafael Nadal's participating in that's his major, that's his Grand Slam. He's going to win that one. So that sucks for Novak. He might have to wait till next year for until he gets another title, perhaps, but we'll see. But in any case, that sets the stage for a first-time champion, which is going to be very, very exciting, especially for either Zverev or Thiem. So that'll be an interesting match. It's going to be tough to see how they're going to do it because, again, they're going to be overshadowed by all the NFL that's going on starting today. We had the Chiefs and the Texans open up their season on Thursday night, and I applaud them for what they did. If you didn't watch the game, what they did was they, in unity, locked arms in arms for a moment of silence. And I thought that was a great, great, great thing that they did. And it was disgraceful that got tarnished because some inconsiderate fans decided to boo them during the football game. And I think that's ridiculous. Does this not tell you the state that we're in? These are two teams that, I mean, obviously they're going to be playing against each other, but for one brief moment, they're showing the unity that we had when 9/11 took place, which we just came past the 19-year anniversary of. And that's a day that still strikes to me. But this is a chance to show unity, which is what we need in this country. And to have those fans who were in attendance boo at the unity, shame on them. They should not be allowed to participate in a football game for the rest of the season because I think that's ridiculous because they don't know what the hell is going on. They don't realize what we're dealing with here. We are a divided nation right now, and we need to come together now because we are in the midst of a pandemic. We are still dealing with social injustice. And for those fans to boo, I mean, that's disgraceful. That's absolutely disgusting. And I hope those fans get booted out for the rest of the season at least, because they don't deserve to watch a football game if they don't care what the situation is. The NFL is doing a terrific job utilizing their platform to try to send a message. And if you don't get that message, then you don't deserve to move on with the rest of us. And that's why we need to have this change, because we are sick and tired of Donald Trump continuing, and I'm transitioning now a little bit into Trump and what's unfolded before we go back to sports. What Trump is symbolizing is separation, division, chaos. We don't want that. He doesn't care about the pandemic. In fact, he knew the severity of the pandemic. There was an audio tape that leaked out back in February and March that came out just this last week, where Trump was talking to Woodward, and he told him about the severity of the pandemic. He knew how bad the pandemic was, and he completely lied to us. He doesn't care about us. He's a traitor. He doesn't care about our situation, our state of being. He doesn't care. He only cares about himself, and that's what I've been stressing all this time. Trump does not care about anybody but himself. And as long as he remains president, this country is going to continue to be divided. We need to be unified. We need to have unity. And without that, we're just going to continue to live this life. And we're going to continue to struggle with the pandemic. And we're going to continue to struggle with being a great country. That's why we need to vote him out of office. Because as long as Trump remains, this is going to continue to happen. He doesn't care. And by the way, he had another rally last night, even though Nevada law states, or policy states, they cannot have huge crowds. So what do? They go to an airport in a county that somehow is able to allow this to happen because, we've only had 8 cases. Again, does that not tell you the state of our situation right now? And so, of course, you're going to have a bunch of people, and because it's in the desert, they're in extreme heat. Not good for those who may be carrying the virus. Large crowd, no masks, barely any masks, if any, and Trump gets to do a rally. How is he able to allow all this to happen? Because Trump wants chaos. Because it's the only way he's going to rule is if there's chaos, and he can claim it that, I'm doing great. No, you're not. You're not doing great. And so circling back to the NFL, this is why we need to have moments like in that Thursday nighter to symbolize unity and that we need to come together now more than ever to become whole. And so I applaud the Chiefs and the Texans for what they're doing. In fact, I'm applauding them right now. But let's focus on the other sports because we don't want to have a lot of negative news going on because we've had a lot of that going on. As I mentioned, it's the opening week of the NFL season. There are some big-time games, especially in the late slate. You've got Tom Brady and the new-look Buccaneers heading to the Superdome to face Breeze and the Saints. That is going to be a juicy Week 1 matchup. If you love quarterbacks, you're in for a treat for this one. My beloved Packers are heading to Minneapolis to play the Vikings. That's going to be the big-time battle in the North. Those are the two teams that many are going to think are going to be challenging each other for the North Division title this year. And so that's a big-time opportunity for the winner to take a huge step towards that. We've got the Cowboys taking on the Rams. We're going to be donning their new stadium in L.A., so that'll be interesting. And so that'll be good. And then the state of California itself and the whole Pacific for that reason needs to have some kind of a diversion. Because, again, transitioning out of sports for a moment, for those who haven't known at this point, there's been a lot of wildfires that have been going on in that region. And unfortunately, they have been struggling. And you got to give those fire workers and those first responders major props for what they're doing. Because that takes courage to try to deal with those fires. That has been tough to contain, and the conditions have not made it favorable to try to get those fires under control. So you hope that they'll be able to get those fires under control. But at least, if anything, hopefully this football game will be a bit of a diversion for you in California, and especially for those out on the West Coast as well. Hopefully your teams will give you some kind of a diversion. Now, moving on to baseball. It looked like the Yankees were going to be struggling and they may not even make the playoffs. And then came the Orioles and the Yankees seem to be getting back on track and they're going to be getting Stanton and Judge next weekend. So it appears that the Yankees may have righted the ship a bit. And so it looks like they're probably going to make the playoffs. I think you pretty much have your team set in the American League at this point. It's just a matter of seeding at this point. In the AL East, it looks like it's going to be Rays, who are probably going to win the division and are in the front line for best record in the American League. Why I don't mention home field, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But then you got the Blue Jays and the Yankees who look like are going to also come out of the AL East. The AL Central remains the best race in the division in all of baseball. White Sox are still winning it. They come into the day one game ahead of the Twins, who have separated themselves from the Indians after winning 2 convincing games. One of them was against Bieber, who finally bowed out. He finally lost. And so as a result, the Indians are now reeling. They lost 3 straight to the Royals, now 2 straight to the Twins. They're still probably going to make the playoffs because there's no other team in the American League with a winning record at this point other than the 3 in the East, the 3 in the Central, and then Oakland, who's winning the West. Houston is at 500, but by default, because they're second in their division, get a playoff spot. So I think you're going to definitely see those teams in the playoffs. Their pecking order will remain to be determined at this point, but we shall see. And then over on the National League side, you got the Braves, and it looks like the Phillies have taken control for second in the East for the moment. The Marlins still have a chance. The Mets, amazingly, still have a chance. Cubs look like they're in control a bit in the NL Central. They got a big win last night over Milwaukee when it looked like they were going to get blanked by them again. Cardinals have a huge week ahead. They got to play 10 games this week with 3 doubleheaders, starting with a pivotal 5 games in 3-day set with the Brewers. 2 doubleheaders involved in that one. Then they got to play the Buccos with a doubleheader lodged in there, 5 games in 4 days there. The reason for that is because they got to make up for all those games that they lost because of their outbreak. But Cardinals have a chance. Brewers still have a chance to make the playoffs. Heck, even the Reds have an outside chance of making the playoffs, which should tell you something about the National League. A lot of teams with losing records, but they still all have a chance to make the playoffs. I think the only 2 guaranteed teams to make the playoffs in the NL, both are coming out of the West. That would be the Dodgers and the Padres, although their weekend set with the Giants got postponed because the Giants having having some of their members testing positive for COVID. So that's going to be one where they're going to probably have to make up those games at some point potentially. But those are the only two teams that look like they're for sure in the NL. The Giants have come to life, and they all of a sudden have a chance to make the playoffs. And the Rockies have fallen off, and that's not surprising because you can't survive on just your offense and that offense-friendly ballpark. You got to have some pitching, and the Rockies clearly don't have that still, and that's going to cost them. Now, the reason why I mentioned that there is not going to be a battle for home field potentially, well, there might be. I'm going to get to it right now. It's because we have struck a deal almost to get a bubble format for the playoffs. Now, here is how that format is going to work. Basically, what will happen is that the top 4 teams in each league, the top 4 seeds in the American League and the National League, are going to host all these best-of-3 wild card series because, again, we've got a different format this year. 16 teams make the playoffs, 8 in each league. That means you have 4 wild card matchups. That means the top 4 seeds in each league would host all the games in the best-of-3 series. That's the only time you're going to have home field advantage. Because then what's going to happen next is when we get to the division series, here's how the format would work. And I've got this right now. I'm reading it right now from ESPN.com. And they got this article that pretty much goes into more detail. But this is basically what the plan looks like. Once we get to the division series, the highest remaining National League seed are going to host all the games in Arlington, Texas. That's the Rangers' new ballpark. The second highest NL seed are going to host games at the Astros ballpark, which is at Minute Maid Park in Houston. On the American League side, the highest seed in that league would host the games in San Diego. That's at Petco Park. With the second highest seed hosting the games in Los Angeles. Now, I presume that's Dodger Stadium, not Anaheim. I think the key is they're trying to get it in warmer climates. And that way you can reduce the risk of spreading the pandemic. Because the MLB is recognizing what the NBA and the NHL have done. If you've noticed, there have not been any positive tests for the last month or two since those 2 leagues have gotten into the bubble. And so that's why they're trying to get to this format. Now, when we get to the championship series, the ALCS will take place at Petco Park. The NLCS will take place in the Rangers' new ballpark in Arlington. And that's also where the World Series will take place. They are hoping to get it started on October 20th and end no later than October 28th. Again, because you don't have to travel that much. You don't have to worry about all these off days. So that's the advantage of having a bubble. And so that way they can try to get their season done when they typically would be ending at this point, which if they're able to do that, I will give Manfred and the MLB major credit for getting through this unusual season with all the bumps that they had early on. If they could get through this season, that would be a hell of an accomplishment in my book. Especially considering what the NHL and the NBA have done. Which, speaking of those 2 leagues, I'm not going to forget about those 2 leagues. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty with those 2. The Lightning and the Stars, both with series leads, both in position to potentially duke it out in the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, the Eastern Conference Finals moved over to Edmonton because I want to have everything over at Edmonton for the Conference Finals and then the Cup Finals. So that way you don't have to worry about all this traveling and whatnot. And again, trying to get the season done as quickly as possible so you don't fall too far behind for next season. But Dallas took a commanding 3-1 lead last night over Vegas. And so they're 1 win away from getting to the Cup Finals for the first time since 2000, which tells you how long it's been since Dallas has been that relevant in hockey. Lightning have a 2-1 lead over the Islanders, although the Islanders did win Game 3. Huge win for them. They needed that. And now a pivotal Game 4 is today. And so that's going to be an interesting battle there. But it looks like right now Tampa and Dallas are in good shape to duke it out for the Cup. We'll see what happens with Vegas and the Islanders. And then on the NBA side, the 2 teams that duked it out in the Eastern Conference Finals both got ousted. And so that will make the offseason interesting for Milwaukee fans because we don't know what's going to happen with the Greek Freak. He's going to be talking to management about that, so we'll see what happens there. But the Heat and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, that should be an exciting matchup because those have been the two best teams in the bubble. Without a doubt, they have been the two best teams in the bubble. And so I think that's going to be a riveting series. I'm wondering how much Boston's going to have left because they had to use a lot of tank in that excellent 7-game battle with the defending champion Raptors. So it'll be interesting to see if they have anything left in the tank for Butler and the Heat, but that should be intriguing. The Lakers finished off the Rockets last night, and so Houston's future will be interesting. I think D'Antoni's going to get the boot. We'll see what else happens with Houston, but the Lakers are in the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2010, which was the last time they won it all. So I think they're going to be in good shape. Clippers could join them today or tonight if they beat the Nuggets. Otherwise, Denver's trying to force a Game 7 after winning Game 5. So it's still looking like it's going to be an all-LA Western Conference Finals. Then you got Boston and Miami. So if you love these major cities, then you're in luck. That's pretty much going to be your conference finals. And then you're either going to have LA versus Miami or LA versus Boston. That either way will be intriguing. And by LA, I mean either of the LA teams. And then moving on to NASCAR, we're going to finish up with NASCAR. Brad Keselowski won at Richmond last night for the second playoff race. And he was unbelievable. Him and Austin Dillon absolutely dominated that race. Dillon had another top 5 finish, and he has really come to life since the playoffs have started. Way to follow up that second place finish, Dillon. That was absolutely unbelievable. Nice effort, though, by Brad Keselowski, and for once, he actually earned the win. Hint, hint, wink, wink. His other 2 wins came at the expense of Elliott getting knocked out, so that's why I bring that up. Speaking of Elliott, I mentioned that he was in that brouhaha with Truex in Darlington. Well, he bounced back to get a quiet top 5 finish. I mentioned quiet because they didn't talk about Elliott that much last night, but he had a nice solid run. Truex also bounced back from that unfortunate incident, and he wound up finishing second. So now both are in solid position points-wise going into Bristol. Bowman had a nice top 10 finish, and so he's in position points-wise. But the 3 that are guaranteed to move on, Harvick, who won at Darlington last week, Brad, who won last night at Richmond, and then Denny Hamlin, who is in on points. He'll be able to point his way in even if he doesn't win at Bristol. But he still kind of struggled last night. He finished just outside the top 10, which is really disappointing for Hamlin's expectations because normally when Harvick wins, he always steps it up and gets the next race. And he never was a factor for the win last night. So he made mistakes. Harvick did too, which is a bit surprising for both. Although Harvick, I'm sure you can just shake it off a bit because he didn't have to worry too much. He was already in. But you still don't want to have those mistakes going down the road, especially when it comes to Phoenix. And you know that those 2 are going to be duking it out for the title. But Brad definitely sent a message that he could be a factor. Martin Truex Jr. could be a factor. I think Elliott could still be a factor. So you got some pretty solid drivers that could make a run at Truex or at Harvick and Hamlin for the title in Phoenix. But it's going to come down to Bristol. Matt DiBenedetto and Blaney could theoretically point their way in, but realistically, they're each going to have to win in order to advance. And then the bubble's going to get interesting. Boyer right now holds the final spot. 3 points clear of Byron. Custer's very much in the thick of things. Almirola has a chance to advance. Kurt Busch has a chance to advance. Kyle Busch has a chance to advance. But all of them could get knocked out if they have a rough day at Bristol. So that's going to be really exciting to see what happens at Bristol. It's a short track race. You know there's going to be tensions that are going to mount. And so that and to have that be an elimination race, that raises the ante. And it's under the lights. So that's going to be a fun race to watch. So if you love excitement and entertainment, I think you're going to be in for it at Bristol, especially given the fact that the college football slate next week looks pretty light again, concerning your Saturday night football game, which is also where college game day is going, is going to be Miami and Louisville. So you make the call. If you want to watch the football, that's fine. But I'd say watch the NASCAR race. That's going to be exciting to watch. So hope you guys have a good week, and thanks for tuning in, and take care, guys.